The biggest problem with my book Dreams was that one of the questions I kept asking in there is, why isn't the earth resisting? Why isn't the earth bringing it all down? And that is the stupidest question in the world, because the earth is resisting. And the thing is, we aren't helping. So there is a lot that I like about my book Dreams, but there's a big problem in the book. And one of the problems, or the central problem, I think, in that book is that one of the questions I keep asking is, if the earth really is sentient, why has the earth not shut down this culture? Why has the earth not fought back? And about a week after the book went to press, I realized that that is one of the stupidest questions ever, because it's just wrong, because the earth is resisting mightily. And to presume that the earth could snap its metaphorical fingers and make the culture go away is simply to project an omnipotent God like Christianity onto the natural world. Instead, I think it's, if the earth is a community of living beings, and if the earth wants to live, both of which I fully believe, and if the earth wants to stop this culture, the earth collectively will do what it can. And the truth is that a week or so ago, Hurricane Michael shut down 40% of the oil output in the Gulf region. And I think it's absurd to talk about the earth not resisting. I think what is not absurd is to talk about us not resisting. And can you imagine if we could assemble a resistance movement that would assist the earth in doing what the earth needs to get rid of this culture? If, in addition to the earth shutting down 40% of the oil output of the region, that a resistance movement was shutting down oil output in that region, in any region. Because the truth is that the earth is fighting back in ways that it can. And the other truth is that we are not aligning ourselves with the earth. I think about this a lot, that all of the so-called global warming activism has not done much of anything to slow global warming. It hasn't done anything, actually. What it's done is it's brought new energy forms online for industrial civilization to use. The percentage of energy by this culture in industrial energy used by this culture in 20, 30 years ago was the amount of energy provided by coal as a percentage of the whole of energy used by this culture 20 some years ago was 38%. The percentage today is 38%. And since this culture uses more energy than before, that means that actually there's a lot more coal being burned now than there was 20 some years ago. Our resistance has been, by real metrics, completely ineffective, by the only metric that matters, which is the health of the planet. Meanwhile, the natural world, nature, the earth, is throwing what it can at us. Sorry, I need to decolonize myself here, is throwing what it can at them, throwing what it can at industrial civilization, as at capitalism. We need to not identify with that system. We need to identify with the real living earth. And, for a long time, I've talked about various parts of the resistance to the Nazis in World War II and how important that resistance was. And oftentimes people then pointed out to me, and I pointed out to myself, well, yeah, the resistance was great, but they didn't actually stop the Germans. What stopped the Germans was the Russian army and the British and US air forces by destroying the capacity of the Germans to wage war. And so there's a fundamental difference, because there is no Russian army coming to wipe out the dominant culture. There is no massive airstrikes against infrastructure. But I realized that was wrong one day after I did a talk in St. Louis, and there'd recently been a tornado came through. And as I was flying out, they had to close, one wing of the airport was closed because the tornado had done such severe damage to it. So the truth is that if you look at the infrastructure of industrial civilization as let's back up. The way that wars are won generally, wars are not generally won on battlefields. That gets the press. But wars are won by destroying the enemy's capacity to wage war. In the American Civil War, what was really crucial were the blockades that cut off supplies to the South, and also taking the Mississippi and cutting the South in two, making it so no supplies could come in from Texas to the rest of the Confederacy. Destroying the rail lines. In World War II, as I said, there were the Russians with the military, and there was also the bombing of the industrial infrastructure and the rail lines especially. It was the rail lines that really took out the capacity of the Germans to wage war. And if you understand that this is a culture of war, and that the war was declared 10,000 years ago against the natural world, and what are the means by which this war is waged, and what are the if you begin to look at this from the perspective not of a member of this culture, but as of someone who cares more for life on the planet than this culture, you start to see that the industrial infrastructure is what makes it possible for this culture to win its war against nature, insofar as winning that war is possible. And once you begin to see that, you begin to see that when nature fights back against this infrastructure, nature is doing what any good military leader does, which is to attempt to destroy one's enemy's capacity to wage war. And all of my work from the beginning has been about understanding that this way of life won't last, and when this way of life collapses, I would prefer that there is more life on this planet rather than less. And so far as I can see, the best way to do this is to attempt to destroy this culture's capacity to wage war. And as such, what we can do is we can align ourselves. We're not waiting for a Russian army to come through. We're not waiting for the American planes to come through. The side that we're aligned with is much bigger than that. It is capable of, in just a couple days, stopping 40% of the oil output of the region. We need to learn from nature, and we need to act on the side of nature.